Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DGS Presents YouTube channel. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. It's been a little while since we recorded. I've been kind of busy with holidays and conventions and stuff, but we are back. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. As you noticed, there is a new guy in the room. That scary looking dude. He is DM Greg, DGS DM, and he is my DM really in my home group here in Chicago. And he loves specifically first edition D&D. He's an expert in that subject. Just huge fan of that. But what I wanted to do today is it's a little bit different versus like in the last episodes that we've done, is we want to talk about our favorite rules, TTRPG rules, and rule variations. So we're going to kind of kill two birds with one stone here. Basically, we're going to talk about things we really like in any game system that we think just works amazingly well, and things that we like to tweak just a little bit. And you'll notice, especially when Greg starts talking, that, it's not necessarily a house rule. It's a variation of an existing rule to kind of maybe enhance it or to clarify or add some spice or flavor to the game that will work without breaking the game, right? Not fundamentally changing the game. So in any case, we'll get to that in a little bit. But Greg, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, it was an awesome intro. Thank you. I'm a little nervous. My first Virgin tour on YouTube. So Colin, Michael, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just going to focus primarily on the only game that I love, which is first edition D&D. So, cut my teeth like everyone else on the blue box and went to first edition and never looked back. Either way, thanks for letting me be here, and plenty to talk about. And they're not necessarily rules, right, Colin? They're also, taking guidelines and tweaking them, making homebrew into a system enhancement or addition. But just having some fun and hanging out with these guys today, giving you guys a show.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we like, you and I really like the mechanic aspect of RPGs, and we're always looking to see what works and what doesn't, and what's effective and how you could change things. So that we're going to get crunchy today, but we'll try to keep it interesting. And what I'm going to do is we're going to jump through these. We have like 10 or 11 items. We'll kind of explain them. We'll talk about how we maybe modify these things, and we'll bounce back between Greg and I as we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up number one.
Nice.
And it is this one. Not too many people out there are familiar with the Masterbook system. It was a West End Games kind of universal role-playing system. It was like a generic role-playing system that came out all the way back in the 90s. I think 1994, I believe, was when it initially came out. And they had a lot of supplementary books and games and everything that went along with it, like Indiana Jones and Species and Necroscope. And we'll talk about some of those with their individual episodes. But one thing that I really love about this system, which I think is really cool, is it came with this thing called the Masterdeck. And this Masterdeck was an enhancement to the game. It's not required. You don't need to use the Masterdeck, but it's you can get it. And what it does is it allows you to manipulate the game in such a way and enhance the game using these cards. So the first thing I have here is the Masterdeck can be used for not only initiative, but kind of setting the stage of a scene or an encounter.
Colin, does that create some type of randomness or some encounter or something? Dude, I've never played this game, but that sounds like a cool ad.
Right? It does. Yeah. So what it does is, like, if you look at this card here, and again, I'm going to put this stuff in the show notes so everybody can download it and read. It'll be a little more, easier to read. But if you look at the image here, the GM, right, will pull a card at the beginning of an encounter or a scene. And there's a couple things here. There are two types of scenes in Masterbook, which is unique. I think to RPG games. I've never encountered this anywhere else. Standard and dramatic. So if you think about a movie, there might be some kind of like, let's think of like Big Trouble in Little China, right? There might be a standard scene where there's a kung fu fight in an alley, and that's kind of a standard thing. But then there's a dramatic scene where you're like facing the final wizard, right, and his 3 henchmen in some huge temple, and some climactic scene at the end of the film. So in this system, basically, when you pull a card, it's going to be different based on a standard scene versus dramatic, and it's going to add some elements into the game. And you'll notice on where it says initiative lines there, this card will determine who, either the players or the GM, right, bad guys, whatever, gets initiative for the scene. But it's a little bit different. It's not just, it's random. There's also these little things that can be added to the actual scene. So like, for instance, you'll notice on this card here, on the initiative lines, it says, this is like for a standard scene, the players would go first, the GM goes second, and the GM has a condition of breaks. And what that means is the NPCs must do damage or improve their situation, or they will flee. So that it like introduces something. Or there could be, which you don't see here, like fatigued, right? A player might take some shock damage, which is like damage to your endurance. Flurry, which we see here, says each player gets 1 extra action this round. There might be inspiration, which means you can remove some damage. A setback or stymied. If you have a stymied, this side loses all their first roll agains. In Master Book, there is a roll again mechanic where if you roll a double zeros, or like you can roll again, you might lose that if you're stymied. And again, we'll talk more about Master Book mechanics in a later episode. So, and then there's this thing called approved action line at the very bottom. That is totally optional. That's if you want to actually reward players for doing certain things. And if they do them, they get a card. And a card may give them, for instance, a bonus, like you see at the top of this card where it says adrenaline.
Oh, there you go. That's the
it's kind of like, Greg, when you play games, you get like a token or something for doing something really well. Like a DM hands you a token, gives you like a +1 to attack. That's what this is.
Cool. And this came out when, in the 90s?
Yeah, this came out in the 90s. But to get these, to get the cards, you have to do the approved action. And it might be tricky.
Yeah.
It might be a maneuver or to trick an opponent. It's not just like hit your opponent and get a card, right? It's going to be something a little tricky. Now, why do I love this? And I'll explain. In almost all RPG systems, initiative is typically determined by the speed or dexterity of the players or maybe the monsters. Yes, I get it. The problem is with a lot of metagaming these days, people are like, there's at least one guy in the party that has 19 dexterity, which means the players almost always go first.
He's probably an elf.
Right. I just don't like that. It's kind of gaming the system, right? Where it's like, we always go first because we have like this introduces an element of chance and danger to the game and unpredictability. So I always thought this system was great. And to play Master Book right, I think you need to use the Masterdeck. Again, we'll talk about this in a later episode. You can get the Masterdeck. I think Precise Intermedia or Precus Intermedia is a company that actually sells this. Even though it's an old game, they have the IP, so you can get the Master Book and you can get these cards.
This definitely qualifies as a dead game. Right?
It does in a way, right? Because they're not like, for instance, like the Indiana Jones system, Necroscope, all those IPs are long gone, right? That stuff's from the 90s. So it is kind of a dead game, although it's still being sold. You can
That's the coolest thing about the channel you and Michael focus on is like the focus on, right, DGS, Dead Game Society. It's about games out of print, things that are not off the shelf today. They've been around, whether you played them or not is not the point. These are game systems and game examples that people have. It's like an old movie, right? It's like the movie we just watched today.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's right. Okay.
I
And
won't say anything about it. But,
yeah. We'll
it's
talk
so
about
cool.
that
So
one later.
thanks. Yeah, you guys got a great channel. Love
Yeah.
it. Thanks for having me on.
So what we'll do is let's flip over to you, Greg, and let's see. Is this the one that yeah, here it is. Number spellcasting difficulty during encounters. I really like this. This is cool. Go ahead, Greg. It's all
It
yours.
sounds a lot better when you talk about it than when you actually put the mechanics to it. However, yeah, I dig it as well. A lot of there is a certain part of the population that I believe does not like this. I've heard from a individual, which I respect his opinion, that saving throws are already that chance for spell failure or difficulty. I agree. Cannot argue at that point. 100% spot on. However, that is not spell failure. That is a saving throw in first edition D&D. So the saving throw I view slightly different, which is it's your character's potential chance of withstanding the magical effects, not just they have no effect, right? Not I only take half damage because I rolled a die. It's I took half damage because my character was doing something. The blast was off to the right a little bit or what have you. But this one here, spellcasting difficulty is a concept, and that's all it is, just the concept we want to introduce that I've introduced in my gameplay, which is magic users, not so much clerics because they have spell failure percentage chances, and those apply directly, but illusionists and magic users who are casting spells, and the intent here is in brackets, air quotes, in combat, right? In an encounter, someone who is in a hostile situation, someone that is being pressured by I don't know, let's say a 10.5 foot tall Etten has found you in his cave and you're digging through his large leather bag of goodies and he's not too happy with you. Okay. So the point is, you are under pressure in that situation as a magic user. And therefore, these are random numbers that you can assign, right? What you see on the screen is the DM's reference to magical spell failures under scroll usage. But the focus here is the concept and then putting numbers to it. When you look lower on the screen, the level difference, total failure, reverse or harmful effects, that is the impact to this thought. And this is what I've applied to my game, and I like it. I do not try and use it to punish the magic user. I try to use it as I would never do that. It would be used, hey, if you're surrounded, your party just dropped to the ground, you're the last one standing, and you're the magic user, and you're like lower than 50% on hit points, and that's just one example. It's gonna be a little more difficult to cast a spell as you're getting hit. Just saying. Now, some would also argue that being hit is also part of it. It's all part of this larger picture of magic users having struggles, trying to pull out spell components or verbally cite something specific in its exact reference, and possibly using symbolism through their hands and gestures. So that's what this is. Introducing some thoughts around making it a little more difficult in those life or death situations for magic users and illusionists to actually have success in their spellcasting.
And again, this is first edition D&D and verbal, semantic, and material, right? So
Right.
there's the idea, right, Greg, where if you have all three, right, verbal, it's more difficult.
That's right.
There's a higher chance of failure, right? It's a more elaborate spell.
Yep, that's correct. And it's just some rough numbers that you don't see on the screen, right? Taking into consideration that lower chart, the total failure, reverse or harmful effects, it's predicated on that concept, right? So like you start, chance for success in a perfect scenario is 100%, right? The magic user's had rest, he's not injured, he wants to cast magic missile, a 1 segment spell, boom, spell's done, right? Minimum effort. Then you get into like a least difficulty, which might be verbal only. It's less than 100%. What is it? I don't know. Whatever is best for your game. Mine, 98%. Mildly difficult spells is next. That would be semantic only, right? But it's a little more difficult than me saying sleep. Semantic is I have to move my hands as a magic user or an illusionist to actually perform the spell. So maybe 96% in my game, right? Again, still an advantage to the magic user. And then you just go through medium difficulty, difficult, and then very difficult. So we can definitely post the show notes. You will see them. It'll all be in there. It's a totally cool concept. I think that works well. And you as the DM don't have to apply it. And if you do use it, you don't have to put any penalties towards anyone ever. It's your
So note to self, do not play a wizard or spellcaster in Greg's game. Got it.
yeah.
Ever.
Actually, I love magic users. Colin, yours is what, 10th level now, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, and I think when you and I talked about this, Greg, it was really because we find in first edition D&D that obviously magic users start off pretty weak, right? You know, it's like what, D4 hit points or something.
Oh, yeah.
You can get killed, but when you're like 12th, 13th level, I mean, you are like seriously badass compared to other character classes.
But you still have minimal hit points.
You do, but I think this is a nice way of leveling things out.
Yes.
Because it's just, you know, again, wizards get really magic users. I mean, old school magic get so powerful.
And it's not necessarily that reason. So I don't mean to cut you off, but it's not necessarily that reason. It's this concept was, you and I originally talked about it and thought through it and verbalized it and then put it to, print. It's to make things a little more real, right? If you're trying to pull out, an iron bar and some gold dust and you're having to move your hands and bring some words to life, having a ogre barreling down on you with a giant club and you're not moving, it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
It's more of that than it is, trying to balance things out. I think mages at high levels, they deserve everything they get. I wouldn't change it to anything. Dude, your 10th level mage I love him. He has but he still only has like 38 hit points.
Yeah, he's got a constitution of what, like 7 or something? He's like thickly.
Yeah, you cast identify and you have to take a nap.
Yeah, he's a total badass though. I mean, he's smart. He's just,
He's not as cool as Michael though. So Michael Brown, the curator behind this episode, Michael, super high five to you, dude. You are like a wizard of things. So.
I'm blushing.
I know.
Cool. All right, so let's change gears and let's move to Call of Cthulhu. So this is one of the ones I put up, and this is the resistance table from Call of Cthulhu. Now, new schoolers who are playing 7th edition don't even recognize this because I think they took this out. Chaosium removed this from and why, I don't know, because this is one of the best mechanics ever created for an RPG game, if not the best.
Well, I think they moved it to a non-binary resistance table.
It's pretty binary to me.
Trinary?
It's pretty binary to me.
Yeah, I don't know what they did, but they removed that. Now, they removed this, but the resistance table is, the idea here is to basically have some sort of default universal system to figure out the percentage chance of accomplishing a specific action when no rule can be found in the book.
Nice.
So this is a great example. So like when I write my adventures, I have like an iron door and it has a resistance of 15. What we do then is we find our active characteristic, like the strength of a player, against the passive characteristic of the door, which would be 15. And we simply connect the X and Y axis on this table to find our percentage chance. So it might be like, I can't read it here, but it might be like 45%, right? Stronger the door, the less of a chance we have to open it. It's all on the resistance table. And it could be anything. I mean, it could be like resisting a poison. It could be like all kinds of things could be in this table, but it's so handy. It's like, oh, I don't know how to adjudicate this. Oh, but I have the resistance table. Boom. And you put it down. It's just like, bam. It's right there. So that's a good one.
You could almost use that for any game system, Colin. It's what it sounds like. I mean,
yeah, right? I mean, almost. You can use it for a lot of game systems. And it's such a great, elegant thing. And I don't know why they took it away, but they did. So anyway, let's move over to Greg again, and let's talk about demi-human class combinations.
Dude, I kind of want to talk more about your resistance table, to be honest. No, seriously, dude. That's like the key point there, right? And this is probably why you like it, and this is awesome of you to find it, is that if there's a scenario where you don't have a definition, right? That's first edition all day long. That's
Mhm.
why they came out with UA, and that's why they came out with second edition, right? The other editions weren't because they were improving anything. They just came out with them. I'm sorry.
Just need to make money.
Exactly. So, point is, this resistance chart, dude, I'm going to use this probably in our first edition game because there's always an opportunity. If not, then I just don't use it. But I want to have that handy. That's awesome. You have to show me how to use it. All right. So, demi-human classes, combinations by the book.
Yeah.
And it's just a little subject where you always see folks online, and I agree, right? Why can't I have a dwarven cleric? I honestly think dwarven clerics, how did that not make first edition? So I've allowed some of my players to play dwarven clerics, and they've always been some of my most favorite characters. However, the player's handbook is pretty specific. And just for all of you rules lawyers out there, let's call it, in the first edition player's handbook, when it talks about class combinations for demi-humans, it references IE versus EG, which means that is versus for example. So if the player's handbook said a half elf could be, right, a certain set of classes, it is IE, it is specific. Therefore, in my opinion, as a DM and being a first editional almost purist, grabbing a few things from second edition, I do have to give it kudos. But it's not for example, it's a limit. So if you don't have a certain class listed under those demi-humans in the player's handbook when you're creating your characters, they can't be that class. Now, realistic, you want to change it? Go ahead, you're the DM. But that's one, and then I do make a note to myself, dwarven clerics, baby, not just NPCs, player characters all day long. First edition, that's regarding those different races and different classes by the player's handbook. And Colin Higgins.
All right. Cool. Makes sense. Let me see. Is this the next one? Here we go. Okay.
This is a game I want to play, and you need to run, Colin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, I play this all the time, but everyone that listens to this program is probably familiar with the Sanity Rules in Call of Cthulhu. I mean, they're glorious. The idea here is that you don't just have physical damage that you have to worry about during the course of a game. Mental damage, right? You can, go insane and something can happen. So it's a great system. If there's, I won't go through all the rules here, but obviously if you miss your sanity check, which is a percentile roll, you may lose a certain number of sanity points, depending if you're just seeing a dead body or seeing great Cthulhu rising out of the ocean. And then there's going to be consequences, right? If you lose a certain number of sanity points within an hour, you may go temporarily insane. Crazy things will happen. Or if you lose a certain amount of sanity points altogether, you may go permanently insane, right? Or lose all your sanity. And then the fun thing about it is in the book, there's a table that you can roll against to see what kind of crazy, insane things happen to you, right? You may faint, you may be screaming gibberish. I remember, one adventure I had in a convention, and I shouldn't even say this because it's definitely going to be terrible, but there was like a World War II adventure where this German soldier saw something, he saw like Nyarlathotep or something. He went totally nuts and just started like furiously masturbating because he was just crazy. Yeah, I guess you can. I mean,
I don't even need a roll for that.
Yeah, but like he was like catatonic, master, like that's what happened to this guy. So all kinds of comedic things can happen, right? When your character goes insane. It's such a fun mechanic and such a fun idea. Other game systems have kind of adopted this. TSR introduced the horror check with the Ravenloft box set. So they came up with that, which is cool. That I love that. That box set is awesome, right? There's another game which I'm going to talk about a later episode called Unbidden.
Leave them hanging. Leave them hanging.
What's that?
Leave them hanging. They want more.
Oh yeah. There's this game called Unbidden, which is like a modern horror setting where you have dementia, right? Where you just become demented, right?
That's
And
hurt.
so,
That's gonna hurt.
yeah, so this kind of thing has been adopted in other games, but it really started here. It started with Call of Cthulhu. They were the first to come up with this awesome idea of the sanity check.
Colin, do you realize my first true exposure to Cthulhu, right? I mean, I've seen imagery, I've seen the game, we've talked about it, right? You and I've talked about it. I've never played it, so all right, I'll take all the bad press now. Go ahead and put it in the comments. However, my first experience or exposure to Cthulhu was in Con on the Cob, dude. That was so awesome. That was like, dude.
Oh yeah.
Greg, I have a here. If you want to play Call of Cthulhu, just don't. Colin's not really good at it, but I am. So you can be in this.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah, and the Muppets go insane quite a bit in it. So
It wasn't somebody wearing like Mr. Hooper's skin.
hey, don't give it all away.
Oh yeah, I won't give it away.
What?
It's completely over the top. So let's see, which one did I have? We did this one. We did that. How about here we go.
Simple.
This is
Simple
the next
house
one.
rule. You know what? This is probably one of the easier house rules and or changes that people will accept, I think, because I think a lot of folks already do this in first edition and other editions, but primarily focus on first. It's a simple concept. Clerics start with additional spells from their deity when they have a higher wisdom. And part of that is because they're fanatics, right? They're bound to their deity. And that's another thing we're going to talk about here. We just haven't gotten to it yet, but that's a nice tie-in. Using that same award system for magic users and illusionists. Why not? It hurts the game none because they're so weak at first level that realistically, this only helps them at the lower levels with a diminishing return. But when you are a higher level mage and you can whale off 2 more magic missiles at first level, right? And you're dropping 5, 7 missiles at a time, that's pretty good. But then you've got second and third level as well and a fourth. So it still affects it, but super, super important at low levels. I think magic users and illusionists benefit from it, and it keeps your players alive a little bit longer without breaking the game.
Oh, I agree. This is perfect. I think this works well without breaking the game.
That's right.
I don't think you're completely like changing everything. I think you're just give the players a little bit of an edge here. You know, it pays to be a smart guy, right?
Well, and you're the DM, right? Give them the edge because you always take it away.
True. Yeah, for number 4 for me, I don't have a slide for it. I went back and forth, and I was thinking I was going to do maybe like the torch mechanic for Shadow Dark, which I like. I think that's cool. Another option, it'll be in the show notes, is in the genre diversion system. There's something called an abatement roll.
Sorry.
And an abatement roll, really, what that is if you sustain damage, you roll d6s. To determine how much damage actually gets through your armor. So it's this kind of opposed roll kind of idea. A little bit, it's different than simply the opponent rolling a d8 to see how bad they hit you. So you have a chance to really, shake off almost all damage, even if you get hit really badly. I thought it was kind of cool. I wanted to add it to the course, or not to the course, to the
this is a class
channel. Yeah, there's a class, but I want to add it because I just thought that was a neat thing, and I will talk about that one more when we get to genre diversion stuff. All right, so not much on that one. Let's go to let's see. Is this the next one, or is this is the next one? There we go. Wall climbing.
All right, this is an existing set of Gygax himself said it's guidelines, not rules, but they're rules until they're flexible, and then they become guidelines, and then they become non-existent, or something changed. But this one here is wall climbing, just thieves. I love the thief class, right? Having a human single class thief is one of the coolest classes, in my opinion. And part of their job is climbing walls. And why not? Why not use the DMG as it's written? Page 19 of the DMG. Sorry, we didn't mention the other ones earlier, what exact pages they were. They'll be in all the show notes down below when we're done. But this one in the DMG talks all about the type of surface and why shouldn't it matter, right? You don't just climb walls. Now, can a thief climb? And I've had it in one of my campaigns where it was a mountainside. They had to climb up a mountain to get to a plateau. Who was the best climber? The thief. Absolutely. Gave him bonuses to his climb walls. He was like, lickety split going up the side of the mountain, where you had the paladin who's in plate armor. I'm just going to climb up too. Nah, it doesn't really work that way, right? Doesn't really work. It's not that easy in plate armor. So this is just a cool rule not to forget about. Never broke the game because it's part of the original game, but DMs, I would recommend find a way to fit it in. Challenge those thieves. If they don't use the skills, and this is a sidebar, right? This is even in here, maybe for another episode. But when my thieves in my game, if they don't use skills and then they go to use it, like, I don't know, 2 gaming years later, I'll give them a negative. I just won't tell them. So enjoy.
Yeah. And again, it adds flavor to the game.
Yep, absolutely.
It adds a challenge, which is, and that's great. I like that. So let me go over to Marvel Superheroes.
Yay!
Yay! You know what? We call this the FASERIP Mechanic. And that's what feeble, average, the whole thing where it goes through the different, amazing, remarkable, all that stuff. This basically is a unified mechanic for determining success, and it's variable, right? You can have like green success, you can have yellow success, which is better, and then red, which is like critical success, all in this table. And then up at the top of the table, there are different conditions or different effects based on how much success you have, right? Versus like if you're shooting somebody with an arrow versus pummeling somebody with your fist or anything like that. So the FASERIP mechanic is really cool. I think it's one of the neatest things that TSR ever came out with. It's so easy. It's an elegant thing. And I mean, you've run it, right, Michael?
Oh yeah.
I've seen him.
Adventure runs it. I run it quite a bit. I mean, I really like it.
Yeah, it's a fun thing, and again, it's anything that's this unified, simple mechanic where you can easily adapt it for any situation. I love that stuff. Obviously, you can see from my other selections that I've made for this episode.
Dude, you know what I love more than that chart? I love your TGS logo. Michael, you guys, that logo rocks. That little skeleton head, I love it. It's fantastic.
It's been around for a long time. That logo is like
2007.
I know.
Yeah, I think it's 2007. God, we're getting old, man.
Well, thank you. I mean, what I wanted to do is like the Fantastic Four. It's just a 4 on the chest. You instantly recognize what it is. It's Fantastic Four. So I want to create a logo with just the skull, so everyone will know it's the Dead Game Society. All 3 of us, 7 of us.
There's 4. There's one out there lurking.
All right, Greg, let's talk about the next one here.
Faithfulness. Oh my gosh. This is one of those DM player potential arguments, not agreements.
We never had those.
Never. But I think Colin can attest in our campaigns that, one, I favor clerics only of lawful neutral or lawful good alignment. That's it. Lawful neutral, because I can say to the players, if you do something dumb, I'm not going to heal you. It's that simple. But if I'm lawful good, it's kind of like, okay, I'll heal you. I want you to be safe. But this is about faithfulness for clerics and druids, that there is a commitment made. And I only bring this one up because in one of my alternate campaigns that I ran online for a great group of guys, went about 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years. But it came to the point where the player wanted to change deities within the campaign and go with you know, a different deity that's not in Greyhawk. And Colin, you can attest, right? I'm a Greyhawk fan.
Oh yeah.
First edition Greyhawk all day long. I got a lifetime's worth of material and enjoy delivering every minute of it. But so we want to change deities from a Greyhawk deity to a non-Greyhawk deity. And I'm like, you guys are the players. I want you to be happy. I mean, I was torn as a DM. So what I said is, and I told them first, it was like the Batman. Remember the first Batman movie that came out? The only thing you saw on TV was a bat, the image of a bat for like a month. And then they started giving you more stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's what I did. I sent them the DMG note, which is what's on the screen now. And this piece here, where is this one found, the DMG? It's in the page 38 and 39. And then there's also another reference for this concept on page 43 of the player's handbook. And it's all around faithfulness. At low levels, the clerics, I always play them. You know what? You're not the deity favorite. Just go out there and pray and do good things and work your tail off and adventure. But so changing a deity in mid-campaign when you're a 7th level cleric, and this deity has already been a part of your life and you're adventuring, you owe them. So to change means that you need to atone, but atonement is only for those who are truly guilty. If you make the decision to change deities out of self-preservation, self-want, whatever, right? And again, talking as a fantasy player character, not a real person, there should be a penalty paid. And that penalty is, as the DMG points out, you lose all spell capabilities. And I will play clerics in my game. It might be a little intense, but it's not hardcore by any means. So this is the concept. Your clerics and your druids owe back to their deity. Changing in midstream, there's a penalty. Then there has to be an atonement. And the atonement is merely a bridge to get to you sacrificing all of your magic items and your goods so that the new deity says, okay, you're willing to lose all in order for me to give you these 7th level, 6th level, 5th level spells.
Well, couldn't you just send like a breakup text? It worked for me.
So I started with a breakup text, which was this message here. And then it went into, okay, fine. Are you sure you want to do this? I offered an alternative, the husband to the female deity in Greyhawk. I'm not going to give you the answer. This could be for another episode. However, did not go with, I threw it out there, man. I cast that fish. And I said, how about the husband? He's more warlike than the one you want to go to. And the player said no. And I'm like, dude, I think you just want to end the campaign. So we did. And that's when the campaign ended, like 2 weeks later. So there's funny things about players too. It was a great time. Great group of guys. Learned a lot. This concept came from that. Clerics and druids, you owe your deities.
Well, Greg, you're doing it wrong. See, I have contempt for all players. And so I don't really care if that makes any sense.
Yes. Oh, by the way, this episode is an intervention, Michael. We're going to be talking about.
Lovely.
This also reminds me, I totally forgot about this as a rule variation, but maybe it's because I've been doing it for so long, I don't even consider it a variation. But I always played, even back in the 80s, that you had to earn your paladinhood. You don't start as a paladin. You got to earn that. And that was part of a quest that was interwoven into the campaign. It's like you have to do these X number of steps. Remember the Baldur's Gate video game? I think you had to do that. Like, I think you had to earn the paladinhood, because it's just, paladins are so powerful.
That's right.
But they're very restrictive too. Yeah. They're lawful good. They have this strict code of honor and all this other stuff. But it's just like, yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great idea to have them earn it. And we changed the fighter, whatever. Like, we added these abilities, paladin, whatever. It's like, let's say you're a 4th level fighter. If you finally earn your paladinhood, typically I either started you as a 1st level paladin or maybe a 4th. I can't remember what I did, but I like the idea, kind of like what we're talking about here with like the faithfulness of having to really get into the background of your character, not just the background, but like the foreground of your character. Like, what is he or she going to do in the course of the adventure, the campaign, to earn the deity's favor and to finally be granted these awesome powers, like, detect evil and laying on hands and all this stuff. Right. So that might be another one to add to the list.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah, that's
Now,
a great.
Well, behind the scenes, I created my own top 10 lists for like my favorite thing, and it all comes from this book right here. So if we have about an hour to go through it,
Well,
there's a lot of really, really good homebrew stuff in here. And yeah, so you guys got about an hour.
Let's spend an hour. Let's start right now.
I'll start going through.
Michael's still trying to get us canceled. Hasn't happened yet.
Nope.
Anyway.
That paladin idea.
That'll be a separate private session.
But anyway, so so that's pretty much the list. So Greg, so aside from all this stuff, what else you have going on, bro? I know you showed me. I'm gonna put it on the stage. Actually, this awesome adventure that you're writing for a future convention that shall not be named yet, but having to do with a vampire in this just totally wicked miniature.
Yeah. So just for the crowd here, this is obviously just more of the show and some sidebar notes, but it's, hey, if it helps you guys out there watching this video. So there is a dude on eBay that I hooked up with years ago, and he prints and paints. I mean, I paint pretty well, I believe, but why? Look at what's on that screen. So he prints and paints minis, and he does them in 32 millimeter. Some of them are 28, kind of bumped into 32. So, but they're still deep there. But look at that. He printed and painted that vampire. And the only thing cooler than that vampire is that coffin. That's all I'm gonna leave it right there. That's the only thing cooler than the vampire is the coffin. But yeah, so Colin I don't know if you mentioned on an earlier video, but I'm in the process of working with a publisher right now to get a written dungeon adventure module printed. So I hope all goes well. I mean, it's still in the early stages. There's a lot to do. People are busy. But that's more to come, and that should be if we stay on track, right? Because right now track is April of next year for a release. It was originally October, November, so obviously we're not there. But this is a second adventure, and we wanted to show these minis that are so awesome. So the dude on eBay, his handle on eBay is Zapzoid Customs, ZAPZOID Customs, and you can find him on eBay. And I'm giving him a shameless plug, because he's helped me be a better DM by giving me awesome minis. And my next module that I'm already writing, I've already got 2 more. It's going to be a game I'm going to run at this convention as well up in April. It's going to be To Kill a Vampire. And there's the coffin, and there's the vampire. And I will be wanting more.
Yeah, well, we should talk a little bit more about how elaborate your games are. Colin tells me with all the dungeon tiles and all that stuff. So,
that's crazy. Yeah,
put a lot of effort into running these games. So it's just not theater of the mind; it's theater of what we're looking at now, which I enjoy. I love this stuff. So, if I talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Do you have a question for you, Michael, or Colin and Michael?
Mm-hmm.
At Con on the Cob, we were just at back in, what was it, October? It was like a month
ago,
right? It was only like 2 months ago. Totally awesome time, Con on the Cob. Do you have a picture of the one, Colin, available that you can put up that has that dark, shadowy figure I sat on the wall? Remember that?
I did. I put that in the last episode.
I knew I saw it, dude. That was so...
Episode before last. So it was the Con on the Cob episode. So the dark cloaked figure that was like sitting. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I put that in that episode. So for our viewers, if you want to check that out, that was really cool. That was To Kill a Lich.
Yes, and that was just like a last minute. We're at the con. I'm in the vendor hall, walking around. That's a whole different game we're going to print as well, hopefully.
Oh yeah,
dude, that was so much fun. You guys had so much fun.
Oh, that was the Battle of the Coliseum was so fun, dude. I mean, we got so drunk playing that. It's so simple. You're just running around. You're in the Coliseum, like killing each other. It's like, you're not entertained.
And what's even cooler is when players continue to give you improvements to your game, where you're like, oh, So on the character sheet you're holding, I can reduce the size and give you a section. Oh, it's perfect. So yes, improvements all the time. But dude, so that mini, that shadow I put on the wall was a last. I'm sorry, real quick. Vendor hall. I see a mini. It's a cloaked dark figure that rests on like a book, or it's like a bookend or something like that.
It was big.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like twice the size of
Ominous.
a normal mini.
Yeah. So then when the dungeon, right, and To Kill a Lich, as you progressed and you were within range of what I would call something bad, I would put that on the table and you guys knew instantly that, holy crap, this is an evil place. It was so cool.
That was such an awesome adventure. That thing, how long did that thing take? Like 7 hours.
7 hours. It was 4 hours and we went 7, and everyone but one.
It was great though. I mean, it was so much fun. I mean,
I got to do a better job with time management.
I'm
glad you had fun.
Everybody was cool with staying and just they continued to play. It was such a cool adventure that we totally wanted. I mean, we faced a ghost. We faced, what the crazy things did we like? Zombie Lord, just all kinds of crazy stuff until we finally got to the Lich.
That's right.
And then like the Lich battle took like an hour and a half.
It's hard. People would think, 16th level magic user, 16th level cleric, undead Lich should be easy to play against a party of 6 people. No, it's hard as hell. You guys were, you gave it a challenge. Fireball, that's easy to do, but you got to point, you got to have a line of sight, People forget that. So, but either way, I'm glad you had fun, dude. It was a great time running it. I loved it. I was honored.
Yeah, that was cool. So, well, okay, guys. We could probably wrap this up. Next episode, I'm not sure what we're doing. We might do Necroscope, Michael? Is that what's
perhaps? We'll look into it. Though I do want to maybe build a pod, like one of our casts around this book, because there's
such
a lot of
pervert.
There is lots of information in here that I didn't even know about that I want to apply not only to my games, but to my personal life. So I think this will be our next episode. It'll be the rated XXX.
Are you curious about that supplement there, Michael? Is that
I am twice as curious. I'm bi-curious about this, actually.
Michael, are we
tri-curious?
Are we required to wear assless chaps when you show that one?
Yes, of course.
Can I
come as you are, whatever you want to do. I don't judge much.
Not much, anyways. Dudes, it was awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. This is like my first YouTube video ever, so good, bad, or indifferent. Loved it. Colin, you're a great friend. Michael, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm there.
Totally stoked. I hope everything is great, and I look forward to putting something together, and maybe I'll get invited back. I appreciate it.
Oh, great. Absolutely. It's been a delight.
Awesome. All right, guys.
So we'll talk to you guys later.
Take it easy.
All right. See you soon.